Welcome to the Empowering Choices Parenting Podcast. My name is Joshua.
I am Lucas.
And I'm Erik.
Lucas and Erik are licensed professional counselors, and today we're going to be talking, our title is called Being a Full-Time Everything. And we were debating what to call this episode because it's like being a full-time parent, worker, dad, mom. Yeah. So trying to do everything full-time, I think, is what we're trying to talk about. And is that possible? And can you do a good job at all the above?
Right. And I think that this is a issue that gets aimed at women primarily. This is just a discussion I was having with my wife, is that like, if you are a woman, it's kind of like you have the option of being a full-time mom,
right? Or
you have the option of like being a professional,
right?
And then there was someone who had commented, it's like, well, for women, it's like, oh, well, you get choices because typically in our culture, as a man, you get told get a job. And you don't generally get told, well, you could be a full-time stay-at-home dad.
Right.
That's not I mean, obviously there's people who do it, right? I'm not going to discount that.
Right.
But like there's some stereotypes for a reason, right?
But the minute someone says, well, what do you do for a living? And you say, well, I'm a stay-at-home dad. The response is generally, oh.
Yeah.
There's some women who get that for being a stay-at-home mom too.
There is.
That also happens.
There definitely is. But, that has always been a piece, like you said, for men. There's not a choice. You get a job. If a guy doesn't have a job, what does he hear? Go get a job.
Yeah. It's like, what's the problem?
Right. What's wrong with you? Why don't you have a job? It's kind of just a fixed piece in Western civilization that if you're a man, you work outside the home. You get a job, you work, or you work now inside the home.
I was going to say there's far more. What is it called? Just work from home. I think that's the
work from home. And then you get a better pass.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would imagine that a person who is whatever, they're an accountant and they work from home, and somebody asks them what they do, they still say, "I'm an accountant." And then whether or not they work from home probably doesn't come up in that discussion.
Right.
It may 3 points down the line, but. Kind of the thing that I was thinking of when I put this little bullet point together is the thing that, again, primarily that women are told of. You can be a full-time mom and you can do that to the fullest.
Right.
And you can and should be a full-time career professional, CEO, whatever career field you're in. And you should do that to the fullest. And then somehow communicating at the same time that you can do both of those things to their fullest without skimping on any of them. And you can and should if you have children. And that's nuts.
Yeah.
Right. And so thus being a full-time everything, is not a no-go.
Well, and it's one of those things that in our culture over in this part of the world, you're supposed to be Superman and Wonder Woman no matter what you do in life. You're supposed to handle it all. You're supposed to handle it all well. You're supposed to handle it all not just well, but, to record-breaking types of things. And that's just the way that is and the way it works.
And that's kind of like the individualism, the rugged individualism that Americans have.
Right, only to the very mystical degree.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because you can't.
You can't.
Yeah.
That's our point. Being a full-time everything, you can't.
Right.
That's the TLDR. You don't need to listen to the rest of the podcast.
Right. I mean, you're taking what we're considering the toughest job in the world, being a parent.
I was going to say, when you clarify which one that is, it's not the accountant.
Right. And then you're adding in a profession alongside that.
Right.
And it goes anywhere from choice to not choice. Meaning, you could be a parent in a number of situations and you have to work and you have to work multiple jobs. You may not even just have one job that you can do that covers everything. You have to do several jobs to be able to make everything survivable for the entire family. And I get that completely.
We're absolutely not wanting to discount the individual who is a single parent who needs to be a parent because they're the only parent and they need to work and they need to hold down a full-time job. We're not demeaning those people.
No.
But I would also say that a human cannot be 100% in two areas, because that's not how percentages
So
work.
it's kind of like you have to understand you're making a sacrifice.
That.
You're going to be
Yes.
sacrificing
That.
somewhere. And so how do you manage that?
Something has to give.
To sacrifice the right thing.
And God bless single parents. If you're in
Yeah.
that situation and it's where you are and you're doing your best, and it's just not possible to be. And I would imagine that every single parent would admit to that. I can't be everything that I want to be because I have to work, and that means that I'm taking some time away from my kids.
Right. Which I think is why it's kind of funny you were talking about. I mean, because it really is sort of a badge of honor to some, I think, especially for some reason, because I've seen more of these posts probably from women than men, but the post that's kind of like, yes, I am a full-time CEO and I am a parent and I'm doing a great job at both of it. I am, and it's almost like a pride thing, but like you're saying, it really can't be, you just have to make a sacrifice somewhere.
Well, I mean, and you just said, I see these statements in posts.
Yeah.
Do people not always tell the complete truth when they're posting on social media? Probably. Oh my goodness. What?
Well, and also to kind of take the stance that you can do both
Right.
efficiently.
Ooh, well, that's a different word.
That's a different
word.
word.
We didn't say fully and completely and perfectly.
Right.
Efficiently.
And so there are going to be sacrifices in both worlds at different times. If you're going to make your children's holiday types of performances, their sporting events, the other things that are very important in their scholastic world as they're growing up, you're going to have to take time away from work. Sure. That's a sacrifice. Now, you may, in your job, I've been in these different fields and different worlds where if you're not there all the time you're expected to be there, you're looked down on.
And
so,
sometimes all the time you're expected to be there is 60 hours a week.
Exactly.
If you're trying to be a high-powered professional.
Right. Yep.
Those people, I mean, like, if that's your thing, God bless you. But like, I view it's like, that's nuts. You want to work 60 to 70 hours a week. And if you're going to be the CEO of a high-powered company, it's kind of like, if you're going to do a good job, you've got to do that.
Right. And so different jobs or different times will call for different amounts of hours in there. I work a lot of hours in the week. I'm here at the clinic more than anyone, but that's not something that I hold anyone to, and it's not something I see I'm going to be doing forever. There are certain reasons why that happens, but it means other things don't happen in other worlds. I love talking to grad students who are just getting ready to get into the grad world because they still have the idea that they're going to do everything.
They're just getting into grad school.
Just getting into it or just about to get into it, and they don't understand what things they're going to have to sacrifice because the grad school programs are going to demand much more of their time, much more of their focus in and out of the classroom. You can't just do all the hobbies and the interests, generally speaking, that you were doing at the same level and remain sane.
Well, that was the lesson that I learned when I was in my undergrad program. I mean, there's a variety of jokes that go around college students, right? If you've got homework, a social life, and sleep. Pick two. Right. And then the joke continues of like, if you go on to further education, it's like pick one.
It gets harder.
And then, I mean, and the way that I kind of applied that to my own life is just like, very simply, you can't do everything.
Right.
It's like, okay, I have this paper to write, and then maybe there's a family activity that's going on, and then maybe my friends at college are doing this thing, and then there's like an all school thing, and they're all happening like maybe over the same weekend. And it is impossible for me to attend and do all of it. And I just had to accept that.
It's a rare person that can be able to do that.
They give up sleep.
Yes.
The people who do everything and you think they do everything, they don't sleep.
Well,
that's what happens.
Is that because they don't need to sleep or they just don't sleep? And there's where kind of the debate is in there.
I'm going to guess it's a rare person who doesn't need to sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, reportedly, Napoleon only needed 45 minutes of sleep.
I'm going to guess that that's a bit of a stretch.
That I knew who didn't need much sleep 4 to 5 hours a night is all he needed to be refreshed.
That seems like there's probably a 1 in 1,000 or
Yes,
1 in 10,000.
I totally agree with
4
that.
to 5 hours?
Yeah.
I can believe that.
I
But
wish it was me.
But it's still rare.
It's very rare.
Still
Yeah.
rare. You have to assume
and-
that like you probably need 8 hours for the average human.
Oh, yeah. And that's what research shows.
Exactly.
And so where we're kind of coming back, into the meat and potatoes of this is it's okay to be human and to have the different things that you want, but what you may need to do is, where do I want my biggest priorities to be at this point in my life? If that's with focusing on raising your kids while being a professional and taking whatever sacrifices in the professional world that needs to be, because what you're seeing is, okay, I want to get my babies to 18 and off in the world, because the way I'm viewing it is they are going to then be my support and my assistance, throughout the rest of my life when I may need them the most. So I want that formed, bonded relationship to be there. Because generally speaking, if you're not there for your kids when they're growing up, they're not going to be there for you the way you would most need them when you're old. I think there was a song in the 70s, Cats in the Cradle, that kind of talked about this. And so you're going to, and that's where you may say, you know what, I'll take the hits in my professional world. Then it also comes down to, how do I be able to focus myself daily and weekly? Because you still have to have your own self-care as a part of that. And one of the struggles that I see with parents is that they will come home from an exhausting day, an exhausting week, and they will just completely crash, and they're completely drained. And so they don't have anything for anyone other than that, except vegging on the couch, watching TV, looking at their phone, looking at their iPad. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, those pieces also will drain you. And so you have to keep that in mind,
Sure.
But how do you be able to layer? And a lot of that is, how do I structure home to where everybody can get some of what they need? Do I come home? Do I have, they used to teach this in marriage seminars, when the man was the one who was out and then coming back in, is that he needed, some men temperament-wise need kind of a, not debrief, but what's a better word there? Decompression. That's, they need a little decompression time. I'm not talking about hours, I'm talking about, 15 minutes to a half an hour to where they could kind of decompress, let things go. Then they could, come back into the family and be able to be a part of the dinner or the cleanup or the homework or the play.
Right.
Because your kids are going to, depending on their ages, need play.
Or bath time or toothbrushing or...
And so you're going to structure that evening as to how that works. If there's two of you together there, because some families are going to be two parents, two partners, and two professional environments as well.
Right.
If we're talking about two parents who both work.
Yes, exactly. And so you're going to be, tag teaming and teaming as to who's going to take care of what. Because you still need to be able to be there with your kids. You may not be able to play with all of them every day.
Well, like tag teaming, like the stuff at home is going to be true even if one of the adults isn't working.
Right.
I mean,
when we had several boys in the home, one of the boys, the way to be able to, spend time with him is from 8 to 9 o'clock. He was in junior high, because you had kids would go to rooms between those times, and Xbox, he had his Xbox in his room, and I went, I'm going to go there. So I would go to his room and we would play Xbox from 8 to 9 o'clock. That was a great nurturing time and experience for him. Whereas another boy that we had, I would go with him to his practices and his games. He loved that. Another boy that we had, I would go out to the garage, and I know he had to learn that I was not going to learn and didn't know auto mechanics.
Oh, but that was his thing?
That was his thing. So he would call out a tool and I would hand him a flashlight. And he'd just look at that. He'd look at me and he's like, you don't know what these are, do you? I'm like, I know they're shiny and made of metal. I think the ones you want, if you just call them by the right name.
The right name. Shiny number 3.
And it kind of came down to that. And he's like, I can live with that. Because for him, he wanted to be under the car and he wanted to talk about life.
Yeah.
Right. And so
it was not vastly important that you knew what a 3/4 inch socket wrench was.
Exactly. Now I do, but I didn't then. And so you're layering in. Now I wouldn't be out in the garage with him every day. So I would pick different days unless it was, he was having a really bad time. Mm-hmm. And so you have to alter certain plans. But you may I have in kids that I have had, there are certain days that were designated, okay, this is your evening, and here's the time frame, not the whole evening necessarily, but here's the time frame, and it can either be like we go out and do something or we stay in and do something, and so you're beginning to work with those pieces. That helps your kids have nurturing. If you have a bedtime, and see, this is one thing that I see parents that really drains on them.
And we suggest you do.
That's just it. Because if you don't have a bedtime, you never get a break time.
You're talking about particularly for the children, I think.
Well, the children need the bedtime,
right,
so that the parents can have a break time.
Well, exactly, right. And in a different scenario, I can envision the adults have a bedtime, but that's not what you mean.
No. I mean, you have to set up your own bedtime as an adult. That's a part of being an adult. You've got to look at things and see what you need to do.
Some people don't do that either, though.
But
that's a different discussion.
And that's a whole different podcast. We can talk about the healthiness of being able to set that up for yourself. Because I do for myself, and the world I live in appreciates that.
Because you're functional when you do that more often?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not as cranky.
Right.
Can actually do things. Will actually move to do things. Will actually be able to move to do things. Whereas if I don't get the sleep that I need, it's going to be counterproductive. And so.
But you're talking about children having bedtimes.
Children having
and
bedtimes.
Parents telling the children when the bedtime is.
Right, because you're setting them up to have a good day the next day because they're going to get enough sleep. You're setting yourself up to either have time with your spouse or have time that you need for self-care. So that you can set yourself up for the next day. If you're in two worlds, parenting and professionalism. Now, if you're just in one world, if you're in professionalism and you don't have any kids, you still need this. For yourself. If you're in one world and you're a parent and you don't have the outside job, you still need this for yourself. Yeah, it's a part of being able to structure things in an intentional way, and that's one of the things that in Western society I don't see a lot of. We don't see parents who just take those reins and go with it because we have that, these mystical beliefs that you can do everything, you can do it well, you just do it by the fly of the seat of your pants, you just go and it works, and it's rugged individualism, and then you fall off the cliff.
Right. And I feel like a lot of what you guys are trying to say is basically, I kind of think of that old saying, a problem well defined is a problem half solved. But in this case, a lot of people don't even see that there's a problem, right? Because they think, I can do both of these. But you have to realize, actually, you can't. So now I need to look and evaluate and figure out what's best for my kids. And yes, it's a problem if you're a single parent and you have no money and you have no job. You can spend all your time with your kids, but you may be doing that, outside because you don't have a house anymore. So you have to balance and you have to go, I could do a job. I could do this way. I could spend this much time with my kids. And I even think, I saw a TikTok of a mom talking about that every Friday night their family watches movies and this and that they actually even have declined going out or doing more fun things for doing that. And I think about some parents get in a mindset of the number one thing I can do for my kids is to make as much money as possible so that I can take them to Disney World and take them on this kids cruise and do this and that. As where actually it may be better to go, I will work a different job that will not give me that much money, but then I can have every Friday night home with my kids. And that actually may be the thing that keeps your family together, not, man, we went on this Disney trip that my parents saved up for and they were never home on Friday nights, but wow, it all made up for it that 1 week on the roller coaster. But that's the mindset.
Kids don't say that, do they?
No, but that's what the parents are thinking.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that's the Disneyland adventure. So that's the icing on the cake of parenting. If you don't have that relationship established with coloring at the kitchen table, then the Disneyland adventure just means they got a fun experience on the roller coaster, but that was it.
Right.
And I've talked to the parents who implemented that and the kids that it was implemented on.
Yeah.
And they will the kids will say, it was a great vacation, but that's all we had throughout the year.
Right. It was the entire year's worth of.
That's when we interacted, and that sucked.
Yeah.
That sucked.
And so that's why I call it, that's the icing on the cake. That's where the pinnacle of your enjoyment as a family should be.
But only if it's based on much understructure.
A great table like this, I mean, is wonderful, in your house, because this is what, 8 feet long?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, you can do so much on this table, and you don't have to have just a big 8-foot table. You can have, TV trays or smaller things.
You know what the biggest shelf in the house is? Is the floor.
Is the floor.
True.
Yeah. You can get down on the floor. And depending on, now arts and crafts don't always work good on that floor. I noticed in our playroom as I got on the floor the other day to play a game and I looked down and went, this is Play-Doh.
Yeah, that's because we have carpet. That's a different discussion.
Play-Doh and glitter.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So there are those pieces that are going to be a part of that.
Right.
But there's so much that you can accomplish in the world of nurturing. I mean, you don't have to have hours and hours. There are going to be days where you're going to be completely shot, and the best you can do is play a game or two of Old Maid. It will mean a lot to your kids because they're going to sense, oh my gosh, it was a draining day. And later on, they're going to look back and go, but you know what? Dad made time for me. Mom made time for me. It wasn't our best game, but
right.
There was those, they were willing to be able to put forth what they could and have those limits with it, because I have those parents who just want to stretch themselves out and out and out and out and out until there's nothing left, and then they snap. And that isn't helping your kids either.
And I mean, you have to realize your kids are only going to be kids for so long. And
that's what they're thinking. That's why they want to put everything out.
Right. But you can work on your career, and you can do, sometimes you have to make a sacrifice to say, while my kids are this age, I will choose to do this and not pursue that. And it's not that there's something wrong if you're pursuing that, but by pursuing that, the sacrifice, when you really think about it, may be too great on the family, on the kids. And so you can always come back later and pick up some of those things and do some of those things. And I think another interesting thing is it all depends on kind of like what stage of life are you at. So for me and my wife, here I am, we've got a 1-year-old and I'm 42 years old. And so I did all my crazy established life stuff younger, and now we're having kids, and that's a different MO than I'm having kids and I'm 19 years old. And so you kind of really just have to measure all of that and figure out what's going to work best in light of this. And even with both of our schedules, she's a nurse, and so she works 3 12s, and so it works for her to be home with him on certain days, and we just kind of figure that out. And as things go and the situation changes and he gets older and may have different needs that we don't anticipate, we will have to modify and adjust. But I think it kind of sounds like the key here is don't just think, yes, I can do it all and it will all work out. You've got to weigh and balance all the stuff and figure it out.
I would direct this podcast to the person who sees those whatever social media posts from this person who says, I'm the best mom ever and I'm the best CEO ever. And the person who looks at that and goes, well, what's wrong with me? And this podcast is directed at that person going, well, the person who posted that is lying and you can't be 100% of both of those things.
Yep.
So, and then you get to choose where you want to put your effort
Totally.
and percentages and resources.
Totally.
One of my favorites is that I know some high-level runners, 5K runs, marathons, 10K, 20K. None of them actually just show up on race day and go, let's do this.
I had a friend who did. That's a great story.
Without actually any preparation.
I had a friend who did, and that's a great story.
And did they win?
Oh, no. No. This was a marathon.
Did they finish?
Yes.
And what shape were they in?
He was stubborn enough that I think he came to class the next day.
Okay, now you didn't tell me what shape he was in, but that could be one of those.
He could barely walk
rare,
up the stairs.
Yeah, there you go. One of those rare individuals. But most runners are going to take a lot of good preparation in there and learn and listen to their body as to how they are managing throughout the legs of such a race. And the next level up is Ironman, and that's even more so. You're running a race, a marathon, an Ironman as a parent and a professional, and you have to learn where you need the different pit stops, because if you as a parent go down, everything goes down.
Yeah.
And so you and that's where I would say your first piece is you got to start, you have to know where your own self-care needs to be embedded in, and then embedded in. And, and that can be as simple, like when I worked for county, I would take my laptop and some other different things with me every day. And I would go down to the restaurant that was just a little walk away. And for lunch, I would have, different videos on while I ate my lunch and headphones. I'm just enjoying it there. And then when lunch was done, meaning I was done eating my food, I would then work on hobby projects that I had there. And I would leave lunch completely refreshed. That's just knowing me and what works. So I would go back to work and then work another 4 hours as if I had just gotten there at 8 a.m, And that's the thing, is you have to know what refreshes you and how to embed it schedule-wise into your life.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I think this was a great episode, and there's a lot here, and it sounds like we even came up with some other podcast from this podcast that we can do.
You were taking notes, Josh?
I was taking notes.
Good.
So so we got some future podcasts here. So make sure to give this, if you're watching on YouTube, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Or if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, go ahead and subscribe there. But we'd love for you to do that. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And make sure to check out our app that's in the App Store. You can search Empowering Choices Parenting or go to empoweringchoices.community. We will see you on the next episode.